Hey guys, welcome to my video on Apush test number 2. For people in all over the USA, it might be different, but for our district, it is chapters 34 to I believe 36. I want to say in the American pageant, but otherwise it's 1920s. The Roaring Twenties, the Great Depression, World War II, entrance into World War II, and foreign policy. Now, this is U.S. history, so we'll be talking from a United States perspective rather than a world perspective. Okay, so let's start with American life in the Roaring Twenties. Important terms to know. I will be referring to the book at points, referring to the book more as in seeing what is important to know rather than seeing what they mean. So, yeah. First is the Red Scare. The Red Scare is a period in American history, 1919s, 1920s, where Americans possessed a fear of Soviet influence and Bolshevik influence. Because, understand something, in 1917, the Soviets had something we called the Bolshevik Revolution, and this was a whole new ideology and a whole new perspective on the world. And as we know, Americans aren't really subject to change, but they felt xenophobic ideas, and xenophobic means the hatred or the fear of foreigners, and most likely in your own nation. To give you an example on a more world history scale, the Spartans were very xenophobic. They hated Athenians, they hated the Phoenicians, they hated the Phaeacians, they hated the Italians, they hated everybody because they were scared that they would ruin their way of life. And we see this in America during the 1919s and 1920s and the period after World War I, because we see a fear of communism. Ooh, communism. The big bad communist party, the Bolsheviks, the Comintern, the Communist International. And when I put communism in a bad light, I don't mean to say it's bad or good. I really don't want to use this channel to express my personal opinions, because that's for another time period. There's a place for that. Yeah, so digressing, but the Red Scare was orchestrated by A. Mitchell Palmer, who was the Attorney General at that time. So imagine this: the top policeman in the USA, because that's what the Attorney General is, the top policeman or the head of the police in the whole nation. The top policeman is actually persecuting communists in the USA or communist sympathizers. And this is not just like people who have committed like bomb plots against the USA in the name of communism, but it's just people who are suspected of having communist leanings. And honestly, as a nation, this puts a blemish on our history, because we have had a policy, and maybe it's not practiced at all times, but we have a policy that we are open. In the Constitution, the First Amendment says freedom of religion. Although communism is not a religion, it's a way of life. So we hinder that during this time period. And actually, in fact, 6,000 people were rounded up and they were deported or put into jail or defamed in the national light. And A. Mitchell Fighter was called the Fighting Quaker. And what really spurred on this to even greater extent was the bomb plot against A. Mitchell Palmer. And it was in his Washington home. So he got the new nickname, the Quaking Fighter. Instead of the Fighting Quaker, he got the Quaking Fighter. And as you guys know, if you take AP Land Comp, I'm sure your teachers talked about this, but quaking means to shiver. And my teacher gave me an example. I'm not sure if you guys take AP Land Comp or if your teacher gave you this example, but my teacher gave me an example of Muhammad Ali standing in the ring. A. Mitchell Palmer has a mindset of being firm. Muhammad Ali has a mindset of being firm, but after this bomb plot, A. Mitchell Palmer got really scared of communism, and this increased the persecution. So think of Muhammad Ali quaking in fear before an opponent. And so many of these, not many, but some of these radicals, as they were deemed by the country, radicals in the sense that they presented an innate and intrinsic danger to the American way of life, they were deported to Russia by way of a ship called the Buford. And the Buford was actually nicknamed the Soviet Ark because if you know anything about the biblical story of Noah and the Ark, it was an exodus to a land. So this is in a way an exile back to Soviet Russia, or like not even back to the land, the promised land of communism. In Noah the Ark, it was the promised land of God. And I'm sorry if I made some wrong assumptions about the biblical story. I'm not Christian, or I'm not Islamic Muslim, and I'm not Jewish, so I don't know much about it, but I try to make links because I believe that connections are the best way in which something is remembered. Okay, after that, and anti-foreignism and xenophonism and xenophobism and the red. Give me a second.